This podcast was created on Messy. Create your own show today at messy.fm.
Yesterday, an icon and a legend was laid to rest. Director, producer John Singleton, age 51. Rest in peace, John. John was a visionary. He took us, most black people, through the 90s, starting with Boys in the Hood, 1991, Poetic Justice, 1993, Higher Learning, 1995, Rosewood, 1997. Listen, out of those movies, I actually have to say Rosewood is probably my favorite John Singleton movie. If you haven't seen it, you should do so. It's rather long. I think it's close to 3 hours. But it is a story of, I guess it sounds like it's based on a true story, because I have read stories about incidences like this, and a particular incident like this in Florida, which is where Rosewood was based. It's the story of Blacktown. I think this is probably at the turn of the century, like the early 1900s, and it's a town that's black. Everybody, you have black business people taking care of their own, minding their own business, maintaining their families in their town, and a white woman cries rape when it wasn't really rape. It was an admonition she had with a white man, but she blames it on a black man, and it just always sticks in my mind. Whenever I think of that movie, I always hear that actress. I don't know who she was, but I just, the sheriff tried to come to her and talk to her and be like, "Are you sure?" Because he knew what her reputation around town was. She had a little reputation for getting with other men besides her husband, and he was like, "Look, before you start this, before we go over there, you get these white people all riled up, and we go over to that black town, you know what's going to happen. Are you sure that this is a black man did this?" And this woman started screaming, "It was a nigga, nigga, nigga." And Lord, what just takes place from that point on is horrific and just horrible. You really should, if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's something you actually kind of, I guess, have to be in the mood to really get with it. But the point is, John Singleton was a serious filmmaker. He's up there as far as I'm concerned. He's up there with the best of them, because his films have stood the test of time. You can watch them today, you can watch them tomorrow, you can watch them 20 years from now, and they'll still be relevant, they'll still be entertaining. A lot of people say, and it is true, Boys in the Hood and Poetic Justice gave us a look at LA. I never actually knew what quote unquote black LA looked like until I saw these movies, But John Singleton will be missed, because after we leave the 90s, he did Shaft in 2000, the remake of Shaft, which is really, really good. Baby Boy in 2001, I don't think anybody can forget that one. Another John Singleton scene that really, really stands out is in Boys in the Hood, when he takes his son Trey and Trey's friend Ricky down to Compton, and he starts talking about gentrification. And I don't know, that might have been the first time a lot of us even heard that word. It wasn't the first time I had heard it, but it was the first time I'd heard another black person just break it down the way that Furious Styles did. And it was very interesting. I wish that, and I'm sure a lot of others of us wish we had really taken it more to heart than what we did. And John Singleton was from the same part of South LA as Nipsey Hussle. And at the end of Boys in the Hood, Trey is wearing a Crenshaw t-shirt. And if you look at the t-shirts that Nipsey has in his store, they're actually identical to that shirt. He based his shirts off of that shirt that he saw in Boys in the Hood. And there's video floating around on YouTube of John Singleton actually visiting the Marathon store and talking to Nipsey's dad about how he came upon the Crenshaw shirt. I think he's at a swap meet or something like that. But that's an interesting little, memorable, a little bit of information that if you ever come across it, just take a look at it. But John Singleton, like I said, he was a filmmaker. He was not just the guy that made movies. He was a filmmaker. I remember going to see Shaft, the original Shaft, as a kid with my older sister. So I was kind of skeptical when they were talking about they're going to remake Shaft. I'm like, why do you need to remake Shaft? Shaft is great as it is. But Samuel L. Jackson killed, and Jeffrey Wright, as I forget his name, but the Dominican guy in there was awesome, which Jeffrey Wright is an awesome actor anyway. But John Singleton has worked with and brought to our recognition some of the really, really great African American actors of our generation. Cuba Gooding Jr., Ice Cube, Regina King, Angela Bassett, Nia Long, Morris Chestnut. Those are all very familiar names now. But back then, in 1991, they weren't so familiar. We knew about Larry Fishburne, because Larry Fishburne had been around since Cornbread Earl and Me. He was a little kid in that. And Apocalypse Now, he was a young guy in that one. But this is when I think Larry Fishburne became Lawrence Fishburne. It might have been a King of New York. Maybe that's when he became Lawrence Fishburne. But in my mind, this is when he became Lawrence Fishburne. And he was great. He killed it. It's not much to say except that, and he produced a show that I really like. That's, I think it's on FX, Snowfall, which I think is kind of loosely based on Freeway Ricky Ross, who was this like big time major drug dealer back in the crack era. It's an excellent, excellent series. I think we're going on to season 3, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a great show. John was the producer on the show, and I think I'm almost sure he has directed several episodes. But it'll be interesting to see how the series progresses now that he's no longer around. Just rest in peace, John King. You did well while you were here, and you rest well, sir.